All right. Let's briefly go through the laboratory manual on Unit 11. I had to heavily revise it to make it appropriate for some sort of online use. It's really hard to do a lab online, but I keep a positive attitude. We'll get through it. So we're going to be looking at various aspects. Now, some of this we have already covered in class, perhaps, and I'm not too worried about it, but some of the new things on evolution will help build on what we're going to be covering in class. So read through the mechanisms of evolution. We're going to talk about natural selection, reproductive success, and things that happen. For this lab, we're not going to talk about gene flow or founder's effect or the bottleneck. I'm going to talk about that in class, but you can at least read through it here. And then we're going to talk about how genes evolve to help in terms of predator-prey type of relationships and getting a benefit perhaps to go after some new food sources and things like that. And we'll demonstrate that with some just touch upon bird beaks and that sort of thing. What I'd like you to do is to work through the hominin evolution and reading about the various fossils that they have found to document the development of humans, and some of it is have to do radiocarbon dating and that sort of thing to figure out the age of some of these, and some of the fossils were not in really good shape. But what we do is that there's certain parameters that we look for that help us identify what's going on with position and the like. For an example, I have a diagram down here at the bottom showing upright bipedal and having, of course, walking on all fours. And one of the things that we can look at in terms of the positioning is the foramen magnum, where the magnum foramen is a large opening in the skull. And as you look through some of your models, you'll see the position. If you see the front of the skull and the back of the skull, the foramen magnum is the large opening in which the spine is serviced with the atlas. The top two of the vertebrae kind of fit the head, and so we can rotate and turn and do those sorts of things. That's the foramen magnum. If it's farther back versus farther forward, you can see that in order for the skull to set where it does versus where the skull would have to have the opening for the spine would be a location farther back versus the human, which would be more centralized in the skull. And they use those sorts of things to determine how they walked. And so please go through the various little summaries here that I have on the sheet for you in Table 1. You can see the foramen magnum here. Chimpanzee on all fours, closer to the front you see the human. Various other terminology. And then I just want you to recite some of the terminology because that's important. And so in your own words you can decide what these things are. If you have a dog at home, pet them, be nice to them. You know, but when you do, see if you feel a raised ridge right at the top of the head. If there is, the more pronounced that is, it's the closer to the wolves that your dog is. And it's just an indicator that it shows as kind of a rule of thumb. Prognath is your teeth hanging out, and there's a reason for that. I think I had provided a picture. Later on I did on predators and the like. You'll see that there's the predator and prey, and you can see that the teeth, I wouldn't want it to be too close to that one. This one doesn't seem to have that. So go through and in your own words. The fun part, I think, is go ahead and I've provided a link for you on Blackboard, but you can just cut and paste here if you want. This link will get you where you need to go. And it's a well done Nova. Nova does a great job, and did Becoming Human Part 1. That's all. To watch it. And it talks about some of the skeletons that you're going to summarize. But it does a much better job putting it in light of what we know and what we don't know about the evolution there. So watch the video. This is a summary of the video, so you can kind of check it and go along as they talk. Write your notes if you want on the sides, that sort of thing. So the activity that's helping you prep for is the data collection, and I don't have them with me, but there's a huge number of skeletons that there's been photographed for you, and that it's the top, middle, front, and back, so you can look at the position of the skull and the various terms that I asked you to define, and now you can just fill out for the various types. And I have representative skulls for each of those as an addendum that are placed in the same directory or the folder as this lab manual, and you can use those to make your depiction on these various characteristics. Kind of fun, actually, if you go through that. It's a good assortment. The pictures are pretty good quality, so I think you'll have a good time doing that. Once that's done, then all I want you to do is to kind of summarize. So look at this sort of scan of how the phylogeny will work for how these skulls, the age, and the thing. And the question I have for you, of course, is how does this compare with your notes? Does it fit? Does it? If there's something that seems inconsistent, go ahead and let me know down here. Or if you think it looks good, you can go over that. Or you don't believe any of it, let me know that. Or you like it, and you like that sort of thing. Please let me know. It's important, that feedback. And then I've got some questions. A lot of these are I want you to think about, and they're simulated. I mean, just use your best opinion and do the best you can with that. Now, the next section is on bird beaks, and it's really the Galapagos Island tour that Darwin had done, and he was able to log the various bird beaks from finches. And I gave you a fair amount of birds with different beaks on them. You can see in your handout. Very colorful, various birds and the like, but look at how the beaks are differentiated, and that really determines the type of food substances that they can go after, and how their beak actually is adapted for a particular nut, or how let's say probing in wood trees and getting insects out and that sort of thing, and the beaks help facilitate that. And this was, of course, discussed by Darwin himself, and I wanted to prove that because I have a passage from his book, and you could read about his trip through the Galapagos Islands. And we're going to go over this. I'm going to give in fact, I think I've already posted it if you're interested. It'll be part of next week's class. I have a full-length video of Charles Darwin, and it gives you a perspective. All I want you to do is just the first part, and you're going to really enjoy the video. My students always comment on that particular video, so it's already posted in your folder for I guess it's unit what chapter are we on? I believe 10, so you can go and look in that. And if you want to get head start, if you just want to watch it because we're at home anyhow, it's a good 45 minutes, but it's packed with all sorts of interesting things. It's not just about Darwin, but it's how it's applied, and that's why I like that video. And I have a worksheet that goes with it, which is right under the video links there. You can fill out, and it's really easy. Kind of just take notes as you watch it, and it helps kind of solidify some of those characteristics. And once you've gone through and looked at this material on the previous page, then I have a paper for you that I've included. It's also on Blackboard. This is just a small snipping from that paper, but it's about two individuals. Their husband and wife team. They've gotten really quite famous about this, and what they did is, in addition to many other things, is they recounted Darwin's Galapagos Islands findings with finches and the like, and they sort of did a modern day version of it, and the concepts of Darwin. I don't want to ruin the paper. You go ahead and read through it. This group is well worth your time. They're amazing people. If you're interested in field work, they are really probably the best I've seen in terms of husband and wife teams working together to do that sort of thing. And then based on all that information that you have up to this, after reading the paper and that little clip from Darwin, you'll be in position to answer these questions at the end. And that's the lab. And as I say, just fill in everything. The document itself, I gave you two versions. The Word document, you can just type that in, the answers and various things. Save it, put your name to it, and then email it to me. It seems to be working out just fine. It's a clumsy system, but it works. And you should get a I got it for me, so that you know that I received your hard work, and you'll get credit for it. But and also comment. I'll have another poll to take the roll next week, and any feedback you give me on this first time I've kind of done it this way for an online class, and I want to embellish it, and any suggestions you have. But that's it. You have a great weekend, and enjoy yourselves, and I'll be flexible on the turning this in when you're done. The idea is you get the concepts and spend time and get that under your belt. We'll reinforce it in class, and that video on Charles Darwin, you can find that in the lectures folder in chapter 10, and enjoy it. It's really well done, but it cuts across on how it's applied. I think you'll enjoy that. Other than that, have a great weekend and be safe.